Welcome. I'm going to try to do a walkthrough of Lab 2, uh, Practice Set 2 for CIS 181. Start from the beginning. I'm going to start Eclipse. Takes a minute to open up. Now, I'm not going to bore you while you're watching me type, so I actually pretty much did the lab. I'll just give you a walkthrough of how to do it. Okay, terrific. I'll do that later. Don't worry about the compile error. We'll fix that together, I think. Okay, so there's a couple parts of the lab. It's basically going to be, the lab is how to create a rectangle object, or actually how to create an object, how to instantiate an object, how to run a couple of methods within the object. I think get area and get perimeter. Let's do the walkthrough. So first things first. All I did was I created a new project. I called it Lab 2 Starter. When I created the new project, you know what? Let's do this. Let me take all this stuff and I'll throw it in a notepad, just so you can see how I created the project straight from scratch. Give me a second. Okay, I'm gonna unload this project, or let's see, close project. Cool. I'm gonna create a new project from scratch. I'm gonna call it Lab 2 Final. Change nothing else. When I have Lab 2 Final, it automatically builds me a source file. It automatically pulls in the JRE 1.7 file. I'm going to right-click the source directory and ask for a new class. I'm going to call this class Rectangle. And it's going to be in Package Shapes. Remember, a project has one or more packages, and a package has one or more classes. It's going to be a public class. I'm going to ask for the constructor. The public static void main. And when I do that, it's going to create a class for me. It's going to give me a main method, and it's going to put it in package shapes. Now, again, just so you know, I don't have to hold you hostage while I type this stuff in. I did this class already. So let me copy and paste this into here. So that's how we got to where we're at. I've got a project. I've got under a package called shapes, and one class called rectangle.java in that project. Okay. So what does this class look like? First of all, let me give you the basics again. I've got two variables. One's called dWidth, one's called dHeight. This is a change from the previous lab. I changed it to a double. Before it was an integer, now it's a double. But these attributes are part of the class. So if I instantiate this class, these attributes are going to go with it. Okay. Skip this next static void method just for a minute. I've got two constructors. I've got a no-argument constructor called rectangle, and I've got a two-argument constructor passing in width and height called rectangle. If I call this two-argument constructor, it's going to build me a rectangle with a given width and a given height. I use the this keyword because I'm going to be creating more than one object, and I want to have a different value for width for each object I'm going to create. Get area simply says for the given object that I'm calling, return me the width and height. The next one is get permissions. I'm sorry, get perimeter. Excuse me. This is going to calculate the perimeter and return that. The last one we'll talk about that is the make golden rectangle, and that was the second part of the lab. But let's take a look at get area and get perimeter rectangle, and we'll go back to the main here. So what I did here was I called the rectangle method twice. I did this method last. So let's look at the first two. Rectangle rec1 equals new rectangle 2212. What I'm doing is I'm instantiating a new version of the rectangle. I'm passing in 22 and 12 for the width and height, and it's going to return to me a rectangle, which I'm going to call rec1. I'm going to do the same thing for this one, And instead of rec 1, it's going to be rec 2. Instead of 22 and 12, it's going to be 10 and 15. Oh, and by the way, after I create the object, I'm going to print off the get area and the get perimeter method. I'm going to call the get area and the get perimeter method. The third one that I'm going to do is the make golden rectangle. Okay, this one's a little bit. This was sort of backwards, and this is one way to do it. There's probably a few more ways of figuring it out. But what this does is says for a given perimeter, 100 in my case, for a given perimeter, figure out what the two sides are going to be. There's a formula out there with a couple of constants to figure out what the perimeter, what the two sides should be for the rectangle, the side A and side B. Imagine A would be the left and right side, and B would be the top and bottom side. These are the two sides that you have to build based on a given perimeter. What it's going to do is it's going to figure out what those two sides are going to be. Sorry about the... If you hover over a variable, it'll give you the IntelliSense box. Anyway, it'll figure out what the two sides are going to be, and then we'll call the rectangle method, passing in A and B, to create a new rectangle and return that. So when I'm returned here, it's just like I called the rectangle method, because this thing is going to return a rectangle 2. It's going to return it into rectangle 3. But instead of me setting the length and width, I'm giving a perimeter, and it's going to figure out the length and width and return to me the rectangle. I said in class before about a function can only return one thing. Well, it is only returning one thing. The one thing doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be a number. It could be an object. This thing is returning a rec, which ends up being a rectangle. That makes sense? Very good. So this is complete. Let me save it, and we'll run it without the debug. And I've got a couple of printouts here. These first two ones was the get area and get perimeter for 22 and 12. 22 times 12 is 264, and 68 looks good too. The next one was 10 and 15. That was 150 and 68. Still, is this 68? Does that make sense? Get perimeter. 10 plus 10 plus 15 plus 15. That shouldn't be 68. Ah, see, I got a logic error. I have rec 1 get perimeter. Let me change it to rec 2 get perimeter because I want to get the perimeter for the second one. I'm going to right click and clear the console. Run it again. Sure enough, 50. That sounds right. 10 plus 10 plus 15 plus 15 is 50. And then the third one, I'm doing make rectangle. I'm passing in 100 for the perimeter. So when I pass 100 for the perimeter better be 100. This perimeter better say 100 because I'm passing in 100. Sure enough, it's 590 for the area and 100 for the perimeter. Now, this is the end of Lab 1 as far as that one part of Lab 1, the first part. The second part was how to test Lab 1. Now, this is a way to test it through the public static void. That's certainly one way to test it. But the problem is with this, it sort of makes you read. In other words, I would have to read the console and say, yeah, 264 makes sense, 68 makes sense, 150 makes sense, and so forth. But that's not what I want to do. Very good. Sorry, I paused it for a second. What I want to do is test it automatically. So how can I do this? Let me take the rectangle. I'm going to right-click this, and I'm going to say New JUnit test case. Excuse me. I click that, and it's going to run through a dialog and set some things for me automatically. It's going to ask me, do I want a JUnit 3 or JUnit 4? Use a JUnit 4. Don't change the source. Don't change the package. Don't change anything. Don't check any of this stuff for now. We'll talk about what setup and teardown means later. Everything else looks good. I click next, and it's going to give me a choice of all the different things that can be tested. Right? It's going to ask me, do I want to test the main method, the rectangle method, the rectangle double method, the get area method, the get perimeter, the make golden rectangle method. What do I want to test? So let's just say we're going to test the get area and get perimeter method. I click finish. It's going to ask me, do I want to put the JUnit in my build path? I do. Leave that there. Perform the following actions. And sure enough, It'll put JUnit4 in my build path, which is cool. And then we'll also build me a class called rectangletest.java. Notice that it's using still package shapes. It's going to import the JUnit assert functions, and it built me two different tests, JUnit tests. One is called test get area. One's called test get perimeter. Now I'm going to steal the code from here, this guy, and copy it, and I'm going to paste it right there. Okay. And the assert, I gave you the code for the assert in the second file that you can download, but basically you're looking for this. So let's see this. Give me 1 second. Okay, 50. This should be well, let's say 20 times 10, just to make it easy. That should be 200. Okay. String message double expected double actual. The exception occur while trying to get Java into the C log for details. Let's see what happens when I say sorry about that, guys. I had to pause it for a second. So we're back. The rectangle test.java. Give me a second. Okay, so I have. This is essentially the same thing as posted. I have a method called get test area, test get area. Excuse me. I'm instantiating a rectangle. Now I know that 20 and 10. These are just my given values. 20 and 10. The area for that should be 200. So the assert equals. It doesn't look like the double works anymore. Like when you pass in a double, it says that it's a deprecated function. So I'm going to cast this as a long. Now 200 will definitely cast as a long, but the get area I had as a double returning. I have to cast that into a long. Remember implicit casting if I want to move from one data type to another? So I'm going to implicitly cast it to a long. So it's going to call the assert equals function, passing in 200. And what it's going to do, there's three parts of this. There's a message part, the result. Second part is the value the expected value that you're going to test, and the actual value. So if this doesn't equal this, excuse me, if this part doesn't equal this part, it's going to fail this this assert. If it equals it, it will pass the assert. The second one we have is a test get perimeter method. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say rectangle equals new rectangle, let's say 10, 15. Sorry, and I'm going to say this result should be 10, 15 should be 20 plus 30, which is 60. 20 plus 30 is 50. Excuse me, comma. Again, I'm gonna cast this as a long rect2 dot get perimeter, and that should be my test for get perimeter. Alright, so let's run it. See what happens. On my left hand side, I've got two tests that were run. If I look here, the little green checkbox, that means it worked correctly. Let's change this to 55, which we know should not work, and run it. I'll get a failure. That big red line means failure, but I'll get a pass for get test area, and I'll get a failure. Not failure like the program failed, failure because 55 doesn't equal 50 failed. And it will if I double click the thing that failed, or the part that failed here, it will actually highlight the line of code or the assert that failed. So if there were 500 asserts, you can get to it easily by double clicking that. Okay, this is a quick walkthrough of Lab 2. I'm going to post this online and take a look at the next part of the lab, which is an account class. It looks pretty simple, similar to this. Great, thank you very much. Bye.